I came home from what was supposed to be a relaxing 3-day getaway to find my house not just empty, but effectively erased, with my own children standing in my living room with a real estate agent and a stack of legal documents, ready to hand over the keys to a complete stranger because they had already decided I was senile, incompetent, and destined for the cheapest, most neglectful nursing home they could find. They didn't even wait for me to pass away. They didn't even wait for me to show a single sign of fading memory. They simply looked at my bank account, looked at the equity in the home I had raised them in, and decided that my life was better suited as a liquid asset for their own selfish gain. And the sheer betrayal of watching my own blood pack my clothes into trash bags, while I was still breathing, is something that will haunt me until the day I die. Tell me honestly, if you were in my shoes and you walked into the home you paid for, worked for, and maintained for 30 years only to find your own children selling it out from under you like you were a piece of discarded furniture, would you have done what I did? Or would you have just rolled over and let them take everything? I need to know if I was truly the villain for what I did next, or if this was the only way to save what remained of my dignity. It all started so innocently, or so I thought, with my son Mark and my daughter Sarah suddenly taking an interest in my health that felt suffocating rather than supportive, constantly asking me if I was forgetting things, if I was keeping up with my bills, or if I felt lonely living in such a big, empty house by myself. I was 65, fit, active, and fully capable of handling my own affairs, but they acted as if I were 100 years old and losing my grip on reality every single day, planting seeds of doubt in my mind until I started to wonder if I was actually slipping, which is exactly what they wanted. They would visit and immediately start criticizing how I organized my kitchen or questioning why I still kept my old car, suggesting I needed more assistance and a safer environment that was conveniently located in a facility they had already looked into for me. I was oblivious to their true intentions for months, believing they were just worried children. So when they suggested I take a 3-day spa retreat that they had supposedly booked as a gift for my birthday, I was touched and accepted without a second thought, completely unaware that the moment my tires hit the driveway, they were already moving in with boxes and real estate contracts. I left on a Friday morning, kissing them goodbye and telling them how much I appreciated their love, feeling like the luckiest mother in the world, while they were busy texting the realtor and checking the property records to ensure they had the power of attorney paperwork they had pressured me into signing under the guise of estate planning ready to go. While I was sitting in a massage chair, they were staging my house for an open house, moving my personal belongings to a storage unit they had rented in their names, and essentially stripping away every trace of my life to make the place look like a generic, unlived-in showroom. The entire time I was gone, they didn't send a single picture of the retreat, and when I tried to call, they would send me short, clipped texts saying they were busy with some surprise or that I should just focus on resting, which looking back now was so obviously a way to keep me from asking questions. When I pulled into my driveway on Sunday afternoon, the first thing I noticed was a "for sale" sign planted firmly in the middle of my front lawn, and my heart dropped into my stomach because I thought for a split second that maybe there had been some massive misunderstanding, or that they were trying to buy the house next door for me. I walked inside, and the house didn't smell like my lavender candles or the fresh coffee I usually made. It smelled like sterile cleaning supplies and cold, empty air, with my furniture gone and replaced by staged, beige sofas that I had never seen before in my life. I walked into the living room and found Mark and Sarah sitting at the kitchen island, laughing as they went over a contract with a man in a sharp suit, and the sound of their voices echoed in the hollow space that used to be filled with family memories and laughter. When they saw me standing there, their faces didn't turn to guilt or shame. They turned to stone, and Mark stood up, his voice cold and patronizing as he told me I was home early and that I should have stayed another night because they weren't quite finished with the staging yet. They didn't apologize for selling my home. They started lecturing me about how this was for my own good, how the stairs were too dangerous, how the property taxes were too high, and how they had already found a spot for me at a lovely, quiet place called Sunny Meadows that would take care of everything once the check from the sale cleared. They were talking over me, describing my future as if I were a child who had lost her autonomy, and it was in that moment that I realized my children had been planning this theft since the day I turned 60, viewing me as an obstacle to their inheritance. I looked at them, really looked at them, and saw the greed and the total lack of respect they had for the woman who sacrificed everything to put them through college and keep a roof over their heads, and I knew that I couldn't just walk away from this without teaching them a lesson they would never forget. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice between disappearing quietly into a facility I didn't want or fighting back with the only weapon I had left, which was the truth about who actually owned the rights to this house. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes, because honestly, I still struggle to know if my reaction was justified or if I went too far. When I finally found my voice, I didn't scream and I didn't cry, because I had spent the last 2 days processing the absolute cruelty of what they were doing, and I had already pulled the original deed from my hidden safe before I left for my trip, anticipating that something about their behavior didn't feel quite right. I walked over to the kitchen island, placed my purse down, and calmly asked the real estate agent if he had verified the legal ownership of the property, specifically looking at the original deed that was filed with the county. Mark started laughing, telling me that I was getting confused again, and that he had the power of attorney papers right there on the table. But I just smiled and pulled the original, physical document from my bag, laying it flat on the counter. I told them that while they were busy forging signatures and trying to manipulate me, they had neglected to check the one thing that actually mattered, which was that this house was never under their control, nor was it even entirely mine anymore. I explained that 3 years ago, when I started sensing that they were becoming more focused on my money than my company, I had set up an irrevocable trust and transferred the deed to a legal entity that required a unanimous vote of 3 trustees to sell, and that the 3rd trustee wasn't them, it was my brother, who happened to be a retired judge. Their faces went from arrogance to sheer terror in a matter of seconds, and the real estate agent, realizing he was being dragged into a massive legal fraud, started gathering his things and backing toward the door, muttering about how he couldn't be involved in this. Mark and Sarah started shouting, demanding to know how I could do this to them, calling me heartless, calling me selfish, and acting like they were the victims of my betrayal. But I didn't blink. I told them that they had tried to sell a house they didn't own, based on documents that were now clearly fraudulent, and that if they didn't vacate my property in the next 10 minutes, I would be calling the police and handing over the audio recordings I had of them discussing how to trick me into the nursing home. The silence that followed was heavy and cold, and watching them scramble to pack their bags, realizing that their easy payday had just evaporated into thin air, was the most satisfying moment of my life. They begged, they pleaded, they tried to bring up the good old days, but I stayed firm, locking the door behind them as they left and changing the locks before they were even off the driveway. The fallout was immediate, with them calling and texting for days, threatening to sue me, threatening to never speak to me again, and trying to paint me as the crazy old woman to the rest of the family. But my brother stood by me, and the legal documentation of their attempted fraud silenced anyone who thought they had a point. I eventually sold the house on my own terms, moving to a beautiful condo in a different state where I could finally live in peace without looking over my shoulder for the next gift they were planning to use to trap me. It has been a year since that day, and I haven't spoken to them once, nor do I intend to, because I realize that life is too short to be surrounded by people who view your survival as a burden and your possessions as their future prizes. I learned that sometimes you have to be the villain in their story to be the hero of your own, and I have never felt more free, more secure, or more empowered than I do right now in my quiet, peaceful new home. Never let anyone, no matter who they are or what they claim, decide the value of your life or the rights to your home, because if they are willing to betray you while you are alive, they were never truly family in the first place. Like this video if you were on my side and think I did the right thing by showing those greedy children the door, and make sure to subscribe for more stories like this one. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section below, and tell me if you think I should ever forgive them, because as of right now, that bridge is burned to the ground. I'll see you all in the next story.